Välkommen till denna aktiedag i Stockholm den 3 maj. Jag heter Gunnar Vrede och jag är chefredaktör för nyhetsbrevet Rapidus i Malmö till vardags. And now I'm going to speak English because we have a very distinguished guest on stage. It's the CEO of the pharmaceutical company Alligator Bioscience. And you are based in Lund, right?
We're based in Lund, yeah.
Yes.
But I'm Danish, Gunnar.
Yeah. Okay, but for everybody's convenience, I think it's English today.
It's English today.
Yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Alligator Bioscience to you. Just a normal disclaimer. So Alligator Bioscience is a phase 2 clinical stage biotech company. We are fully focused on developing antibody drugs in immune oncology, so helping the immune system to better fight cancers. We have a pipeline of a number of interesting preclinical and clinical candidates to stimulate the immune system. And underlying that, we have a number of technologies that will allow us to continue to develop innovative and novel drugs in the years to come. We are based in Lund, and we are listed at Nasdaq in Stockholm on the small caps market. And we are currently undertaking a new share emission that I'll talk more about towards the end of today's talk. If we look at our pipeline, you can see a number of candidates. Today I will focus mostly on mitazalimab, our phase 2 asset, which is currently being tested in first-line pancreatic cancer. We also have 2 assets at the end of phase 1 and one at just entering phase 1. I'll talk a little bit about that during today. And then I'll talk towards the end about 4066, our novel third-generation immune stimulatory molecule that we see as a future growth avenue for Alligator Bioscience. What you can see at the bottom of the slide here is a number of partnerships that we have with companies, both for clinical molecules and also for licensing agreements. These partnerships I'll not talk about today, but keep in mind that these will provide income to Alligator, both in the near term, but certainly also in the long term. So a robust immune oncology pipeline with mitazalimab being the lead asset in phase 2 clinical development. So what is mitazalimab? Mitazalimab is a so-called monoclonal antibody. It stimulates a part of the immune system or a molecule in the immune system called CD40. And this is very, very important in the immune system because it allows the body to recognize tumors, to educate, attract, and also activate the T cells that eventually are going to kill the tumors and therefore alleviate the patients of their cancer. The drug was designed in Lund, and now we are testing it in clinical trials across Europe. We'll talk more about the timelines later, but as a starting point, I can tell you that the molecule has been in a large phase 1 clinical study where we showed that the drug was safe, that the drug was efficacious, and it stimulated exactly those cells that it was designed to stimulate in a dose-dependent manner. And you can see this on this slide. On your left, you can see that the drug stimulates the so-called dendritic cells. On the right-hand side of the slide, you can see it stimulates a cell type called macrophages, both cells intimately involved in educating the immune system. And in the middle, you can see as a result of that initial stimulation, we get a stimulation of the T cells that are the cells that eventually kills the tumor cells. And how does this look in pancreatic cancer? And we're going to talk more about pancreatic cancer as this is the lead indication for mitazalimab. So when we give mitazalimab to these patients as the first drug they see, this drug will stimulate the so-called macrophages in the tumor to make these tumors start degrading the tumor stroma, so the connective tissue in the tumor. Think of the tumor as being very solid, very hard to penetrate, and when we give the drug, the tumor sort of softens up and become more permeable to chemotherapy, to antibody drugs, and eventually also to the T cells that I talked about before that are eventually going to kill the tumor. And then in the second wave of action, we will see mitazalimab start activating the dendritic cells that will take up material from the tumor that is being killed by the chemotherapy, thereby stimulating a positive cycle that will reinforce the immune response to the tumor again and again and again, eventually leading to the destruction of both the primary tumor and also of the metastases in these patients. So if we look at pancreatic cancer or bugspytkirtel cancer, it's a horrendous disease. There is no cure today. It's approximately 400,000 new cases annually every year. In the Europe and US, we have approximately 200,000 of these cases, and you can see from the slide, only 20% of these patients can actually be cured or helped by surgery. So you have approximately 150,000 patients in the US and Europe every year that only have chemotherapy as the only treatment option. And this chemotherapy is harsh. It has a lot of side effects, and it's actually not very efficacious. If you look at the bottom right on the slide, you can see that the most efficacious of the chemotherapies actually only help around a third of the patients. And you can see that the chemotherapy actually only give the patients up to 6 more months where the tumor doesn't grow. And eventually we can only prolong or promise these patients on average 11 months of lifetime after they have received their diagnosis. So we believe that there is a lot of unmet medical need, as we call it, a lot of improvements to be done here. So what we are doing is that we are combining mitazalimab with chemotherapy in patients with pancreatic cancer, and then we see whether we can first of all increase the number of patients that respond, if we can get these patients to live longer without the tumor regrowing, and finally, of course, the ultimate goal is to have these patients live longer with their disease, so live longer and better lives. So data that we showed in January, so we read out this study in the first set of data in January, where we looked at how many of the patients do actually respond to chemotherapy and mitazalimab in combination. And you can see here in blue that if we take the latest 5 studies where chemotherapy has been used alone, we have approximately between 25 and 34% of the patient responding. So let's round that off and say 1 in every 3rd patients. But when we add mitazalimab on top of this chemotherapy, we can see that now it's more than 50% of the patients that are actually responding to the treatment. So a significant increase here. What we also showed in that study was that when we looked at the number of patients where the tumor had either started to become less or had stopped growing, then we actually saw that 91% of the patients had a clinical benefit from the combination. A truly remarkable result. And further, we were able to show that the safety profile of mitazalimab in combination with chemotherapy was confirmed, meaning that there's no additional significant side effects when you add the 2 drugs together, which is very important also in this patient population. So we have designed the trial in a way that gives us data on a couple of points. So what we'll see mid-year, so that's end June, early July, is that we will read out more data on number of responding patients, but we'll also start to see how long the patients start to survive without the tumor regrowing. And then early Q1 next year, we will provide the full top-line data from the study. So we see these 2 milestones as being very, very important for mitazalimab and for Alligator. And our investors, so 2 significant value incremental points there. If we look back at the timelines and how can I with any confidence show you that we will provide these data as I just told you. When you look back at everything that we promised the market from end of Q3 2021 and up till now, we've delivered on any milestone, and we continue to do so with mitazalimab and with other programs in our pipeline. what's going on underneath the surface, you can say now with mitazalimab, we of course continuing to deliver on the trial. We have started our discussions with the regulatory authorities in both in the US and in Europe on how to best develop mitazalimab, accelerate that development to bring mitazalimab to the market as well and fast as possible. We have applied for orphan drug applications or designations both in the US and the EU. And then we have started or continued phase 3 preparation with manufacturing, with toxicology, both to shorten the timeline to phase 3 development, to take out risk of the program and increase value for a potential partner. And talking about partners, we have a number of big biotechs and pharmaceutical companies that have become strongly interested in mitazalimab, and we are currently intensifying these discussions and seeing a deal window from, I would say, mid Q3 to the end of Q1 next year. So that's mitazalimab. If we look a little bit deeper in the pipeline, you will see this molecule called 4066. So it's a next generation after mitazalimab, so it's built on everything we know from mitazalimab, from the preclinical development, from the clinical development, and everything we know about developing antibodies in Alligator. And we generated a molecule that is probably going to be even more precise, even more efficacious, and even more safe than previous generations of this class of drugs. So 4066 is the first range of a long list of drugs, and we will be ready to take that drug into preclinical development, IND-enabling studies by the second half of 2023. So very, very important and I would say future-proof innovation from my colleagues at Alligator Bioscience. A third molecule is what we in daily lingo call 527. Officially it's called ALG-APV 527. It's a co-development with a US-based company called Aptevo. This is a molecule where we again attack tumors in a tumor-specific way in indications like breast cancer and non-small cell lung cancer. We started a phase 1 study in collaboration with our partner Aptevo in the US in February, and we expect to see the first data from this study towards the end of 2023, with the phase 1 study then continuing into 2024. So again, a very, very interesting molecule, the third generation of its class, and also here with a great potential for the future. So if you look at Alligator as an investment case, we are mid-stage biotech company, phase 2. We have a strong expertise in CD40. Our best-in-class mitazalimab agonist is in phase 2 pancreatic cancer, in first-line pancreatic cancer study there. And we see major inflection points starting already within a couple of months, and see them roll on to early 2024 and then beyond. We've built long-term growth opportunities with 4066 and the underlying platform, which we call Neo-X Prime. And we will build both a proprietary and partnered pipeline using this platform. We have, and we didn't talk much about that, we have a number of highly differentiated antibody platforms that we'll use on a daily basis in our collaborations, for instance with Orion, and also to generate new proprietary molecules. And then we have a number of molecules that are ready for out-licensing to add to our approved track record with business development. And as I said, we have a very attractive news flow coming up over the next 3 to 24 months. And you can see some of the milestones out here to the right. And if we just look at the rights issue that is currently open, it's going to be offered at a very, I would say, nice price. We are raising approximately 200 million Swedish. It's 91% secured, and that there will be a warrant structure to ensure that we can harvest and build all the value for our investors in the milestones that come out between now and August. So 200 million, 91% secured, and the subscription period have started and runs until the end of next week. And with those words, I thank you for your attention and take any questions that might be.
And I'm running with my leg here over the stage. Just one very simple question to start with. Why is the name of the company Alligator? What?
So we wanted something aggressive. No, I think actually I think that has been lost in the history. But it's very convenient. It puts us on the top of the Rolodex, and I think it signals a little bit of aggressiveness and also durability. And that's exactly what we are.
Okay, it has nothing to do with the actual
It has
research.
nothing to do with actually what we're doing, no.
Okay, and your research, this is complex to say the least. You mentioned that mitazalimab.
Yeah, we just call it Mita when
Mita,
we talk
okay,
about
we
it
call it
ourselves.
Mita.
Yeah.
You had a picture there where you see the effect of, well, I say cell poison.
That's
Since
fine.
we
That's
say
that's exactly what it is.
Yes, cell poison. And when you add Mita, you have a higher effect. So will Mita be a substitute, or will it be complement to cell poison?
Yeah, so that's a very good and essential question. No, first of all, these chemotherapies, they are the established therapy, and we are not aiming to replace that. So you will try to build something on top of that, and there mitazalimab's mechanism of action is very complementary, so it fits very well. That what we do and what the cell poison cannot do in pancreatic cancer is to start the immune system. It can just kill the tumors, but nothing then really happens. When we add mitazalimab, we can see that we activate the immune system, so we have sort of both a left and a right that sort of punches to the tumor, and that's very important.
So the bottom line is, are you aiming for Mita to be sufficient to cure cancer on its own?
No, I think, first of all, today's cancer therapy is always combinations. People either have surgery and then radiation or chemotherapy, for instance, in breast cancer. In other cancers, you have antibody drugs, you have chemotherapy, you have surgery. So it will always be a combination. That's why the drugs that we are developing need to be very, very safe, because you don't want to add trouble to the patients by having unsafe molecules. So we have efficacious, safe molecules that we can add on top of chemotherapy in pancreatic cancer. For instance, we have just got an IND approved by the FDA for bladder cancer, where it's in combination with checkpoint inhibitors, which also stimulate the immune system. So you should see mitazalimab as something you can, in most indications, sort of add on and improve the therapies that are already existing.
Okay. Have you seen any side effects, any bad side effects so far?
So that's also a very, very, very good question. So the first generation of these molecules had a lot of side effects. So the industry has tried to engineer that out while maintaining the efficacy. And when we look at our competitors, I think we can be proud and say, with some humbleness, that mitazalimab is actually the best molecule, giving the best efficacy and having very, very few side effects. Of course, when you combine a drug with chemotherapy, there will always be something, because the chemotherapy gives a lot of side effects on its own. But what we've seen so far from the phase 2 study is that we don't add anything significant on top of chemotherapy, and that's very important.
Okay. And I asked you this before, but mitazalimab is a very general molecule, and you're aiming for different kinds of cancer with this molecule. And you start with the absolutely most hard one.
Yes.
What we say in Swedish, bukspottkörtelcancer.
Yeah.
Why is that?
So there are several reasons for that. First of all, we believe that the mechanism of mitazalimab fits very, very well to the situation in pancreatic cancer, and we already talked about that. Then having the opportunity to test your drug in first line, so that before the patients have seen any other drugs, that is a privilege and something that you should try when you have the opportunity. So the patients here have the first drug that they see is actually mitazalimab, and then chemotherapy, and so the opportunity is the biggest. Of course, the challenge, as you said, is the hardest. And your point about that you can plug mitazalimab into a number of indications is very important, because that of course gives a lot of opportunity. And Alligator alone would never be able, or most likely not be able, to sort of try all those out. And that's why getting a partner, once we've sort of finalized the phase 2 study, that has the muscle, that has the financials and the operation capabilities of not only develop mitazalimab in pancreatic cancer, but also in other indications to maximize the value of the molecule. That's of course important.
I think that if you get top-line data that your molecule actually works on one type of cancer, then will the next type of cancer be much easier and faster to develop?
At least you can say that the risk will be lower, and you can take that in two different directions. You can take all the cancers of the digestive system, so of the colon, of the stomach, so gastric cancer. They have tumors that looks similar to pancreatic cancer. You say here you already have the mechanism in the type of cancer that you want to treat. So that's one avenue you can go. And then you can go to all the other cancers where you have active immune systems like melanoma, bladder cancer we discussed, kidney cancer, so on and so forth. So I would say it will not be easier per indication, but the risk of the entire molecule has of course been significantly reduced, and the potential value increased.
And every indication has to have its own phase 1, 2, 3
not phase 1
research.
but its own phase 2 at least, and then phase 3. Yeah.
Okay, you can skip the phase 1 with next one.
Yeah, remember we did a big phase 1 study earlier, so that hurdle has been passed.
Okay. Okay, so much about your research and the science about it. Now you are doing a rights emission, 200 million, and the subscription period is ongoing. Yeah. Yes. You can say anything about the development so far?
Not others than it's 91% secured. Our key shareholder, who owns 25%, and number 2, who owns around 9%, they have both taken their share of the subscription. I've taken mine, which is public. So that's how much I can say right now.
All right. And 200 million is a substantial amount of money. How long will it
that will take
be
us,
enough for you?
I mean, first of all, it will take us, and that's number 1, it will take us beyond the readout in the mid-year, and definitely also in 2024, as we discussed. So into well into the middle of next year, and then we'll see. It's important here. We are investing not only in the clinical trials, but as I said, we're also investing in the manufacturing process underneath. We truly believe that being ready to phase 3 as fast as possible will have a significant value for a molecule like mitazalimab. Think about it. A drug like this probably can sell somewhere between $1 and $2 billion a year at peak sales. So every year you delay to the market, you actually lose out $1 billion of dollars of sales that you'll never have a chance to recover. So speed to the market, that's important.
And the subscription period now ends at May 12th?
Yeah.
Yep. And your first next data news will be in June.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more better to have this data relieved in the period? So
yeah, but then
the
you
market
could say
gets more information.
Then you could say the same point about having the data, the next data point in January. No, you need to raise the money when you can. We are comfortable with what we're doing.
Yeah, okay. And I just wonder, when you describe this milestone data, there's something in June now, in a month, and there's something in third quarter, or did you say fourth quarter? I don't remember actually.
I said the beginning of first quarter 24.
That's top line.
That's top line.
You had something in between there. It was 3.
Yeah. We hope to
some interim data.
Yeah, we hope to see data from the phase 1 study with 527 in very late Q3, I would say, if not early Q4.
The reason I ask is how you, when you're a layman and not very into this, and you're still interested in the company as a stock owner, how do you evaluate these milestone news outlets?
That's
I mean, a top line final data from a phase 2. I understand that is important.
That is more than important. That's crucial.
The interim data, is that
the interim data that we will provide in June serves a couple of very important purposes. First of all, it gives us a mid-step to see how good are these data really that we put out in June. And that is maybe for shareholders an opportunity to have a first uplift in the stock. And for Alligator, it's very important because it gives us an opportunity to start our licensing process with pharma based on data. I mean, I don't want to wait until top-line data and then start that process that easily takes 6 to 9 months. I want a set of data in late June, maybe early July, that can sort of get all the pharma companies aligned, and then we can start that process so we can actually do a deal earlier than otherwise.
So for a stock investor, the interim data is just as important as the top-line data, more or less.
Let's not get carried away here. It's a very good. It's like we've been running a marathon, and when we get those top-line data, we have been running maybe 30 kilometers or 35. So we still need to get over the finish line and get the nice medal before we can really celebrate.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But I hear you when you say 30 kilometers out of 35.
35 out of 42, yeah.
Okay, Søren, our time is out. Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.